Hi, my name is Beth Logue. I'm co-chair of the statewide education justice team for Power Interfaith. I'm also a member of Chestnut Hill United Church in Philadelphia. Our congregation has been a member of Power for over 10 years. The objective of this presentation is to explain the current work of the Basic Education Funding Commission and summarize the testimony of two experts in the field of education concerning Pennsylvania's inequitable system of school funding. The commission is made up of the education chairs, a House Democrat, House Republican, Senate Democrat. The at-large members consist of two House Democrats, two House Republicans, two Senate Democrats, two Senate Republicans. Representative Mike Sterla is a co-chair. He's from Lancaster. And Senator Kristen Phillips Hill is a co-chair. She's from York. In the administration, the commission members are the PDE Secretary and the Pennsylvania Department of Education Deputy Secretary for Elementary and Secondary Education, and a governor appointee from within the administration. What is the purpose of the commission? They are charged with reviewing the distribution of state funding for basic education to Pennsylvania's 500 school districts and providing a report of its findings to the General Assembly. Power has heard the report is expected by mid-January 2024, but that some legislators want it pushed back to late spring after the 2024-25 budget is already completed. We want to push to get something in place by the 24-25 school year. We need this in place sooner than later. Every student's education is counting on this work and this funding being adequate and complete. Why is the commission holding hearings now? In 2014, a lawsuit was filed on behalf of 6 school districts, 7 parents, the Pennsylvania Association of Rural and Small School Districts, schools, and the NAACP, asking the legislative leaders, state education officials, and the governor to comply with the state constitution and ensure all students receive a high-quality public education. On February 7th, 2023, in a historic victory for Pennsylvania's public school students, Commonwealth Court ruled that Pennsylvania's school funding system is unconstitutional and must be reformed. Legislative leaders did not appeal this decision by the July 21st, 2023 deadline, and the decision is now final. So the state is mandated with coming up with a fair funding system. In order to do this, they put together hearings across the state. So the Basic Education Funding Commission scheduled 10 hearings throughout the state and asked experts in all facets of education to testify. Power was present at Allentown, Harrisburg, Philadelphia, and Lancaster. And we had a pretty good presence, especially in Lancaster, where we were allowed to have some testimony there. So that was really nice that we got to have quite a bit of a say during that hearing. So 2 important bits of research stood out in the hearings: proof of the inequity in Pennsylvania's system and the amount it will cost to adequately fund Pennsylvania's schools. And these are the 2 bits of research that I'm going to highlight today in this presentation. The first bit of testimony to the Basic Education Funding Commission was by David Lapp, Director of Policy Research at Research for Action. And he testified in Lancaster on the upside-down system of Pennsylvania's system of public education. 3 main points that he made about education funding were: the most important, inequity is the defining feature of Pennsylvania's system of public education. And this is what Power is really pushing for. The racial inequity is enormous, and we really want to see that remedied. We see it in school funding gaps. We see it in education opportunity gaps. We see it in achievement gaps. Number two, the state must identify adequacy targets to eliminate inequity in school funding. And number three, Pennsylvania schools work when they are equitably and adequately funded. Number one, inequity is what distinguishes Pennsylvania's public school education system. Study after study has reached the same basic conclusion. Nationally, Pennsylvania ranks on the higher side of overall school funding, but ranks near the bottom in terms of school funding equity. So this chart shows what the national average is for funding, and you'll see this line represents the national average, and that Pennsylvania is below that national average, meaning it has a regressive system of school funding. By comparison, New Jersey is progressive. You can see that line up here. Pennsylvania is regressive. So that one funding ratio there means the US has a funding progressivity of 1.01, meaning 1% more funding is allocated to students from households in poverty nationwide than towards students from households not in poverty. The School Finance Indicators database by Baker, DiCarlo, and Weber ranks Pennsylvania 11th in the nation on overall school spending. However, they found Pennsylvania's school funding severely unequal, with districts serving high child poverty areas spending just barely 80% of the per pupil investments of districts with low poverty districts. The study also documented profound disparities by student race, finding Pennsylvania has the fourth largest Black-white adequate funding gap in the nation and the third largest Hispanic-white adequate funding gap. So Pennsylvania is spending a lot on education, but the way they're distributing it is so inequitable that the Education Law Center located in New Jersey graded Pennsylvania with an A on total funding, but an F on funding distribution. So if you look at this chart, this is all the states with an F. Pennsylvania is way down here. And the low poverty districts receive on average $19,499 per student. And the high poverty districts receive on average $15,312 per student. So the high poverty districts in Pennsylvania received over $4,000 less per child per year than low poverty districts. A high poverty school of 500 students should receive over $2 million more per year. This could easily pay for 20 more staff members, like reading specialists, math specialists, special ed teachers, ESL teachers, counselors, assistant principals, to name just a few. There's a lot more that could happen with that money. Education opportunity gaps. Using the federal civil rights data collection, Research for Action created the Educational Opportunity Dashboard, which ranks the 50 states based on access to 14 indicators from the CRDC that measure access to 3 essential areas of educational opportunity. 1, quality educators, 2, quality school climate, and 3, college and career-ready curriculum. While Pennsylvania ranks 17th overall in average access to opportunity, it ranks 50th, the worst in the nation in terms of gaps in access to educational opportunity between our white students and our students of color. And if you're looking at this chart, you'll see not only are we 50th, but we are an outlier. We are way out there. The other schools gradually go down, and we get to Pennsylvania and wham, it's way over to the right. So that is embarrassing. It's a red flag. So students of color in Pennsylvania have less access to schools with quality educators, quality school climate, and with a college and career-ready curriculum compared to their white peers. We are the worst in the nation. This is terrible. We should be outraged. The worst in the nation. Research for Action's Education Opportunity Dashboard measures race and family income gaps across the nation, but the size of the gaps in Pennsylvania are consistently larger than national comparisons. The next slide shows wider gaps by race in Pennsylvania than the nation in 12 of 14 indicators, meaning students of color have less access to certified teachers, certified STEM teachers, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math, experienced teachers, a low student-teacher ratio, less access to schools with low suspension rates and low student absenteeism, and less access to schools that provide advanced math, AP, or dual enrollment courses, calculus, chemistry, physics courses. So this chart is probably a little hard to see, but overall, you can look at these indicators over here on educator index, climate index, and curriculum index, and see that compared to the national average, Pennsylvania is way higher. One area that they're not higher is low student counselor ratio, which means we're doing a little better than the nation in student counselor ratio. It doesn't say we're doing great because the nation in general is low on counselors. Another interesting area that I thought was surprising was that, or I should say not surprising because our teachers work so hard, is the low teacher absenteeism. In Pennsylvania, teachers not showing up is not the problem. Our teachers are showing up despite all these other statistics. Our teachers are showing up more than the national average. So this figure shows the gaps in average opportunity scores in schools by race and income. And so the black-white gap, Pennsylvania is 49 out of 50 states at the bottom. In the Hispanic white gap, we are 50 out of 50 states. In the eligibility for free and reduced lunch, we are 49 out of 50. So this is not a good report card. We are not doing well. In achievement gaps, same thing. We see the same thing. Hispanic, white, scaled scores. These figures up here for Pennsylvania are showing that we have a very high gap. This is not good. The national average is down here. Ours is up here. Same with black, white. Scaled score gaps. Pennsylvania is up here. The national average is down here. David Lapp, Director of Policy Research at Research for Action, says this moment presents an opportunity for the Commission to fulfill its mission and finish what it started. By refining the existing formulas to incorporate adequacy targets and subsequently allocate resources proportionally to districts with the largest shortfalls, we can achieve school funding fairness. How much will it cost to adequately and equitably fund PA schools? We're going to find out in a minute. But I want to point out that Power Interfaith has marched many times in Harrisburg. They've marched locally. This particular march was from Samuel Gomper's school to Lower Merion Elementary School. Samuel Gomper's school is in Philadelphia, and Lower Merion is right across the city line in a very wealthy area. This march was in June of 2021, and it highlighted the disparity between the well-funded schools, between a well-funded school and a poorly funded school within walking distance of each other. Helen Gim of Philadelphia City Council joined us. She's right in there up front. There she is. Helen Gim joined us. So this testimony is by Dr. Matthew Kelly, of a school funding expert from Penn State to the Basic Education Funding Commission. And he found that the poorest districts need the most, but they have costs that they cannot control. Those costs are the 3 tiers of special education students, the number of English language learners in a school, poverty, acute poverty, and concentrated poverty, and the number of charter students or charter schools that a school district is paying for. The districts with the least amount of taxable wealth have the lowest ability to generate funding at the local level through taxation. They have the highest student-related cost and greatest need for additional funding, according to the state. They spend the least despite their need. They spend the least despite their higher tax rate on average, and are the furthest from meeting the goals the state has set for them. A new adequacy study was conducted using section 2502.48 of the school code, and using the state's most current weights in both fair funding, in both the fair funding formula and special education funding formula. Matthew Kelly was researching what is the typical spending needed for a school district to spend to meet the state's goals for high school graduation rates and proficiency on state exams. The goals for generating this, let me take a step back. Section 2502.48 of the school code was last updated in 2008. It does not account for a number of costs like more rigorous college and career-ready standards, charter schools, and new special ed requirements. So his goals for generating the estimate were to provide transparent, comprehensive, and reasonable estimates to meet state standards, to utilize weights and costs already utilized by Pennsylvania's current formulas, and to use the most up-to-date information, including special education costs, charter school costs, the dramatic increase in school district share of PSERS payments, that's the pension, a more accurate data source for study in poverty, for students in poverty, and Every Student Succeeds Act, which replaced No Child Left Behind in 2015. So the results were an adequacy shortfall of over $6.2 billion. This shortfall is made up of there were 412 school districts out of 500 spent less than they needed to meet their adequacy targets. These districts educated 83% of the students in the Commonwealth. So think about that. 412 out of 500 districts are underfunded, which is 83% of the students in the state. Located across the state in 64 of the Commonwealth's 67 counties, adequacy shortfalls across districts were $6,258,438. Let me say that again. Adequacy shortfalls across the district were $6,258,438,239, about 20% of current expenditures. The median shortfall across the Commonwealth's school districts, including those districts without a shortfall, is $2,572 per average daily member, or per student per year. And that's the average. So in 286 districts, 57% of all Commonwealth's school districts have a shortfall that is greater than $2,000 per student per year. What's not included is facilities. Many districts have years worth of deferred maintenance, and pre-K. where there's an estimate 96,560 pre-K eligible children currently unserved across the Commonwealth School District. Districts would need an additional over $1 billion in aggregate to serve these students. So Power Education, Statewide Education Justice Campaign is asking for two key demands for the governor and Pennsylvania General Assembly. Number one, we demand full and adequate public school funding from the General Assembly. Adequate funding means a substantial increase in the basic education funding, starting with the 24-25 school year, and a plan to reach a fact-based adequacy target within 4 years. Our public education system must provide a world-class education to every child, no matter their zip code, their family income, or the color of their skin. Our children must have access to excellent pre-K, special education, and school facilities. Number two, we insist on equitable funding distribution across the Commonwealth to correct decades of racial bias and eliminate the racial disparities in the distribution of PA school funding. What can we do? Call Governor Josh Shapiro, submit your comments directly to the commission, write a letter to the editor, visit your legislator and show them this presentation, ask them to pass an adequate and equitable budget, educate your congregation, neighbors, parent groups about the issues using this PowerPoint, tell them to contact their legislators. Attend Power's February 19th, 2024 statewide assembly. I thank you for your time, and I hope that this was helpful to you. If you click on the live links throughout the PowerPoint, it will give you a lot more detailed background. I was just trying to summarize it for you. We look forward to you using this information to really help get our students what they need for the sooner than later. That's what we want. We want, as soon as possible, we want equitable and adequate funding of Pennsylvania's education funding dollars. Thank you.